Hey guys, what's up? It's Scott Clark with Scooter Media, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to properly balance the brand new DJI RS3 mini gimbal. Let's get into it. So one of the hardest things with these new gimbals is trying to get the perfect balance. So in today's video, I thought I'd show you how to properly balance the camera on the gimbal. I'm going to give you a couple different examples, heavier lenses, lighter lenses, and then we'll also show you how to mount and balance a camera in vertical mode. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to get our little camera plate off of the gimbal and onto our camera. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna release the silver or gray lever on the left-hand side here. That's going to loosen that. There's a little safety pin on the left-hand side here that's going to allow me to remove this. So there's a little safety pin there so that your camera won't come flying off. But in order to remove that plate, we just press that in and remove the plate. And then we're gonna grab our camera. And for the first example, I'm gonna be using the Canon R7 with the 18 to 150 kit lens that it does come with. So the first thing we wanna do, we're gonna take our plate here, and the plate has a little lip on the one side of it. I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a little lip. And what we wanna do is we wanna line that up with the front of our camera. So we're gonna put our little screw into the hole. It's got a little folding mechanism there that helps you to twist the screw. So you can just fold that up, twist this screw. Once it's kind of tightened a little bit, just make sure that that lip is right against the edge of your camera. So I'm basically pushing it back toward the back to make sure that lip is right tight against the front. And then we just turn that screw until it's tight and we've got our plate on the camera. The next thing we're gonna do is we're just going to mount that onto the gimbal. So, same thing, we're just gonna slide it back. You don't have to press this thing in this time. You don't have to press that little safety because as soon as you bring it in, it's gonna pop in. And now it's kind of locked into place. So you do have a little bit of play on this plate mechanism. So for this example, because it's not that heavy of a setup, I'm just gonna put it in the middle of that plate. And once we're happy, we can just tighten that silver dial and that's gonna keep everything in place. Basically, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the right-hand side of my camera is flush up against the side here, which it is in this case, but in case it wasn't, there is a little red dial on the front here. I'll actually undo this so you can see the little red dial there on the front. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen that red dial. And what that's going to allow is that's going to allow this plate here to slide back and forth this way. So depending on your camera size, the camera body size, you may need space, but basically we want to kind of move that over to the right until it's basically touching that side. And once you're done with that, we can then again retighten that red lever. So now we've got our camera installed and now it's time to start balancing the gimbal. And to do that, there's three different axes that we have to balance. And the first one is our tilt axis. And there's kind of two areas that we need to balance with this first part. So you kind of see here, we've got a plate here that allows us to move the camera frontwards and backwards this way. Tighten that for a sec. And then we also have one on the bottom here, and that is going to allow us to raise the camera up and down on this side axis, which doesn't want to move for me today. There we go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this guy back up. And the first one that I'm going to do is this lever here. So the front and back forward motion. And before we get started on the actual balancing, the one thing I do want to mention is you want to make sure that your camera is actually ready to go and ready to be balanced. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure your lens cap is off. You want to make sure the battery is in the camera, and you also want to make sure the card is in the camera. We're not taking anything off the camera and we're not putting anything on the camera once it's balanced. Okay, so with that out of the way, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to release this little lever here, going to unlock it, and then basically what we want to do, right now you can see our camera is falling back. So if I let it go, you don't want to really let this go for real because it's just going to smash on things, but if I just let it go, you can see it's wanting to fall backwards. So what we need to do is we already loosened that. So we want to push this forward until it still wants to come back a little bit. If I go too much forward, you can see now that it wants to point down. So we have to find the happy space in between, and I'm pretty good with that right there. So I'm going to tighten that for now. We might need to readjust that later on, but for now I'm happy with that. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to play with our plate that moves us up and down or back and forth this way. It's basically the one that's going to raise the camera up and down this way. And what you want to do here is, again, we're going to loosen this, and you want to basically, I'll give you an example. If I let this go, it's going to come back, and you can see that all the weight is wanting to push back towards me. If we go all the way the other way, you can see now it wants to go that way towards the camera or towards you. So what we want to do again is we want to find the happy space where it's just going to stay straight up and down without flopping forward or backwards. And to do that, we're just going to slide that whole mechanism back a little bit. Okay, I can feel it wanting to go back. We've gone too far. So it's really small little increments, and sometimes it can get a little frustrating because you want to move slowly and then it just jumps on you, but it is going to happen. But there we go. It is staying straight up and down. For now, I'm going to tighten that. And I'm just going to see if I put this any which way now, it should stay. And we know we have our tilt axes totally perfectly balanced when you can put the camera any which way and it's going to stay like that. And one thing I should mention too, before I get too much farther, usually with a lens like this, you want to put it to its middle. This is a zoom lens. So usually with a zoom lens, you want to put it to about halfway when you're balancing it. I have been using this setup for the last couple days and just wanted to let you know, because this lens is so light, you don't really need to do that for this example. I will show you another example with a heavier lens, but just know because this lens is so light, even when you do zoom it out, there's not much weight distribution difference, and the motors are able to handle it. But just to be aware, normally you would put this about halfway so that when it is balanced, you can go out a little bit further, you can go a little bit back a little bit, and it's not going to throw off the balance. But in this case, again, I have used this lens. It is so light that even fully extended, it doesn't really affect the motors because it's so light. One thing I also do want to mention is that all three axes do have locks on them. I just kind of been locking and unlocking without showing you guys, but there's a little lock here for the tilt axes. And again, you loosen that and that's going to allow it to freely move. But again, I'm happy with our balance. We're going to tighten that one back up. Okay, the next thing we need to do is the roll axes, and that lock is right back here underneath the motor. And to loosen that, we're just going to flip that. And as you can see, now it's going to roll freely. So what we want to do, as you can see, if I let this go, it's going to basically fall to my right. So what we want to do, again, we want to move that over this way. If I move it all the way, again, you're going to see that it wants to fall to the left. So what do we need to do? We need to find the middle ground. So to do that, we're just going to slide this over until it stops wanting to lean. Okay, I'm happy with that. As you can see, it's still wanting to roll ever so slightly. That's not going to make much of a difference. And then the last one we have is our pan axes, and that lock is right here on the right-hand side, on my right-hand side. So just push that up to loosen that one. And sorry, I'm going to lock this guy back up. And in order to balance this one, we've got it unlocked. You can see that it's moving freely. We need to tilt it, and we don't want it spinning all over the place. So if I tilt it, so already it's better there than it was. So let me just try one more time. Just try pushing this up a little bit more and see if it's better or worse. It's worse. Okay, so it looks like approximately around the 1. Okay, and now you can see that it's not moving anywhere. It's not tilting. It's not really, it's gonna move a little bit. But I would say, guys, that I'm pretty happy with that. So if we unlock everything now, this one's unlocked. We can unlock the roll axis and the tilt, and we're basically left with our camera. And you should be able to basically throw that just about anywhere and it should stay. Now, we've got our gimbal balanced. We're ready to go. Before we turn it on, the only thing I just want to mention, you want to make sure to have all of the locks unlocked. You don't want to start this thing up with any of the locks locked because that's going to put a lot of strain on the motors. It will tell you, but again, it's not something you really want to get in the habit of doing. So before you do start this up, you just want to make sure all of the locks are unlocked, which we have done. So in order to start it up now, we're gonna hit the power button. We're gonna press it once and then press it once more again, kind of hold it in until it comes on. So once and then again, and then our DJI light comes on. And you can see there, if I turn this guy around, you can see our little screen there, but I don't know if you can see the little green light there. Basically what's that showing me is that the balance is good. As long as you have a green light, our gimbal is balanced. If you have a yellow light, it's okay, it'll still work, but it's not perfectly balanced. If you have a red light, the gimbal's not happy, it's not balanced, it's not gonna work very well for you. So what I would say is try and make sure you have that green light on there before you do anything. There are going to be a couple situations with some heavier camera gear and lenses that you will not be able to get that green light in certain instances because it's just so heavy. But in this case, we're good. We're perfectly balanced. The next thing we want to do before we go out and start doing any kind of shooting is press that button in the top left-hand corner, and it's going to say start calibration, and we're going to hit start. You're going to see the camera shake. It's going to do a shake shimmy. It's going to make like a grinding noise. That's perfectly normal. It's basically the gimbal finding the absolute perfect balance for the camera, and it's setting up the motors to know exactly how to work and maneuver with this camera setup. So there we go. It's complete. We just go back to our main screen, and that's it, guys. We're ready to take this one out and start shooting with it. And there you go. You can see we're balanced. So that was the first example. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to put a heavier camera and a heavier lens on this just to kind of show you the difference between a light setup like this Canon R7 with the 18-150. And like I mentioned, I don't know if I can show you guys this, but I'm going to zoom this thing all the way in. But as you can see here, it is still green. And if I spin this for you, you can see my lens is fully extended and I'm at 150 millimeters. And to be honest, trying to shoot at 150 millimeters is kind of difficult with the gimbal. It's not something I normally do. I usually use the wider end, like, 18 to 50 millimeters-ish. I just personally prefer that focal length, but if you did want to use this at 150 millimeters, like I said, you don't have to necessarily balance this specific one with it about halfway, but normally with heavier setup, you would. But anyways, we'll move on to the next example and I'll show you that one next. Okay, now that I've showed you how to balance the lighter camera and lens, I'm going to show you how to balance a heavier load. And for this example, I'm going to be using the Canon R6 with the 24-105 lens, and it also has the adapter on there to get the EF lens onto the RF mount. So just to be upfront, this is probably a little bit too heavy for this system. I think, basically what DJI is saying is that you can fit a full frame camera, R6, R5 with the 24-70 RF mount lens, so there's no adapter and it doesn't have quite the focal length as this bad boy. So just wanted to be upfront and let you know I'm not sure if this is going to balance properly or not, but I just wanted to give you an example in case you are trying to balance a heavier load on this little gimbal, just to see what happens. So let's get into it. So I've already put our plate onto the bottom, flush with the camera, and then we're just going to mount our camera to the plate. Oh, and actually I got to move it over slightly because this body's slightly bigger than the one that was on there before. So we'll just mount our camera. Now, the first time, because it was such a light load, we just put our camera anywhere sliding back and forth here. Because this is a heavy load, we're going to want to put this as far back as we can. So I've kind of pushed it all the way back on the plate here as far as I can. You can see there's a little bit of play there. So I've got it as back as far as I can. I'm going to lock that plate into place. And then we're going to loosen off our red guy again to remove the gap here to slide this over. So we're going to loosen that guy, slide it. Didn't want to slide for me. There we go. Right up flush against the side. And then we can tighten that lever again. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure we're all locked up here. Okay. So again, we're going to do this the exact same way we did the first one. We're going to start with the tilt. I'm going to start back here. Again, Because we got such a heavy load, you're gonna want almost everything maxed out. So I'm literally starting as far back to the back as I can. And one more thing to mention, I almost forgot to take off my lens cap here. And you do wanna make sure lens cap is off, just like before, battery's in and the card's in before you balance. So anyways, you can see we're coming back a little bit too far. So I'm gonna push it forward a little bit. That's pretty close. I'm gonna lock that there. And then again, we're gonna try and go with this. Again, we want this to just stand straight up and down when it's all said and done, if it will, with this heavy setup. Still want to tilt back a little bit. Okay, there we go. I'm happy with that, sticking straight up. I'm gonna tighten that, and I'm gonna check this again to see where our balance is. So it is tilting back slightly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna readjust this, and we wanna just push that forward. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna tighten that. Again, we'll see. Now, again, another thing I should mention, normally, again, what you would do is you would have this, especially with a big lens like this. This is the 24 to 105, 24 is there, 105 is there. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let's just rebalance this with this sticking straight out. I'm not sure if it'll go. Let's see. About halfway is probably in between 50 and 70 somewhere. So let's just see if I can balance it with it like that. And if so, we're gonna have to pull this back ever so slightly. Okay, and again, we'll check our up and down motion. Okay, see, the only problem with this lens is so old, it's gonna just keep creeping up and on me. However, okay, the problem is as soon as I bring it straight up and down, my lens wants to crawl back in just because it's a little old. It's not as stiff as it used to be. But anyways, I'm happy with that. It's not going to stay like the other one did with the light setup, but either way, I'm happy with that. We'll lock that. Now, we're going to go to our roll axis. And right away, you're going to see that it wants to roll this way. Again, you're going to want to max this out and pretty much push it all the way over. And even then, it still wants to tilt that way. And as you can see, this one's not balanced at all as nice as the lighter setup was that we had on earlier. And like we've maxed out, we can't move this over anymore. And it's still wanting to go this way, but there's nothing we can do about that. So anyways, I'm gonna lock that. I'm gonna check out our pan axis. And again, kind of want to slide this almost all the way back. Generally what we want to do is we want the center of gravity of our camera to be basically over top of the pole of the gimbal. So anyways, to check this, again, we're going to tilt it 15 degrees. And we are twisting pretty good. We'll see if moving it forward helps that at all or not. I think we're getting worse now, but I just want to test it just to be sure. Yes. So I think we'll probably go somewhere around here. Still a little bit twisting on me. But again, with this being so front heavy, I think we're not going to have much of a choice. And actually, I think it's actually getting a little bit worse. So somewhere in around 1.5. Oh, maybe not. And as you can see, guys, this is, again, touch and go, trial and error. And with a heavy load like this, it's not going to be perfect. So I'm just going to see what happens if I unlock everything, if this is even going to be doable. We can see, again, that it wants to tilt to the left, but the other balances are half decent. So let's just see. I'm going to turn it on now just to see what happens here. Okay, I've turned it on. We've got our green light. It's going in between the green and orange/yellow light. I have a feeling though, if we bring our lens back all the way, we've got a green light, meaning we're balanced. If we go back out to 60, which is kind of where I balanced it, we're still green. And if I go all the way out to 105, we're still green at the moment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back that off to 60, which is where we balanced it. And again, we're gonna go into that calibration and we're gonna start calibrating. And again, you're gonna see it shake, you're gonna hear the little grinding noise, but that's again, perfectly normal. It's just setting itself up to balance this load. Okay, gimbal calibration complete. And there you go, guys. We have our green light. We've got our Canon R6 with the 24 to 105. And as you guys saw, it wasn't perfectly balanced, like the light R7 was with the lighter lens. But I just wanted to show you are able to fly something as heavy as this on the little RS3 Mini. All right, guys, the next thing I'm gonna show you is how to balance this vertically. And to do that, the first thing we need to do is take off our plate. And to do that, we're just gonna loosen off the red lever. We're gonna squeeze our safety pin and remove that piece altogether. And the next thing we wanna do is we need to remove this piece right here. And to do that, we're gonna loosen our lock at the bottom here. We're gonna slide that down. And then at the bottom here, there is a little locking pin. If we push that, that releases that plate and that will allow you to take it right off. So now to get our plate onto the vertical bar here, you're gonna see that little red mark there. And on our plate, we have the same little red mark. So we just wanna slide that onto there. There we go. There we go. Our plate's on, and again, it's not gonna come off now that it's on because it's on with our little safety latch there. So the next thing we're gonna do is I am going to lock all of these things. I'm gonna turn it this way. I'm gonna lock our axes down here so they're not flopping all over the place. There we go. And we'll lock this guy too. Okay. Next thing we want to do, I did already put our plate on and it's screwed on tight, making sure that it's flush with the camera. We're just going to mount the camera into our plate. There we go. So now that we have it mounted on our plate, I'm just going to tighten the lever down. So we've got the red lever tightened down now, and we've also got our silver lever tightened down. All right, we've got the camera mounted vertically. Now the balancing is basically the exact same that we did before. And again, I'm gonna start up here. I'm gonna loosen my lever. I'm gonna start with the tilt. And again, you can see our camera's kind of flopping around a little bit. Actually, let's just see here. It's actually not flopping around that much. So we're gonna go this way. We're gonna loosen our lever here to slide this plate back and forth. And again, we wanna make sure that it's gonna stay up straight up and down. Okay, so it's done staying straight up and down now. Now, if we put our camera back, does it flop back? It does flop back a little bit, so we want to push it slightly forward here. That's too far, and that's too far. And one thing you will notice, guys, it is a little tough to do little increments with these things. It sometimes wants to slide too much on you. But anyways, I'm going to tighten that. And there we go, guys. Again, we know it's balanced. As soon as we can set the camera and just leave it and it's gonna stay as is, we know we're balanced on the tilt. So we're gonna lock that again. We're gonna loosen the roll axes now. And again, you can see it's tilting to this side. Now it's tilting the other way, so right in between there somewhere. And that looks pretty good right there. Okay, we're gonna, again, lock that one in place. We're gonna unlock our pan axis. And again, this is the one where we just wanna tilt it at roughly 15 degrees or so and see if it rolls. And actually, guys, it's not even rolling there, so I'm okay with that. So again, before we turn everything on, we wanna make sure all of the locks are unlocked. Okay guys, now that we have everything unlocked, I'm going to go ahead and start up the gimbal. And to do that, we're just going to press it once quickly and then press again and hold. So once quickly and then once again and hold. The gimbal turns on, gives us our beep. I see the green light. Everything's happy. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our calibration, just like we did the last couple times. It's going to shake. It's going to give you that grinding noise a little bit, but it's just going to ensure that the camera and everything is perfectly balanced. And that's pretty much it, guys. Hopefully this helps you guys balance your cameras on your gimbals. And if you found value in today's video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, as it really does make a difference. And I'd love to have you join me on this YouTube journey. And also remember to hit that notification bell to stay up to date with everything coming out on this channel. Thanks for watching today's video. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.